Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, where we reside here in the live studios at Hythe, southeast England, on the coast of the English Channel. And we've had a big day today. Our new recording booth arrived and was assembled by Bhakta Seb and Abhaya Das Brahmachari, and it's almost ready to use, and it's a very exciting day. So soon the computer that will be running our new recording activities will be arriving, maybe in a week or two, and then we'll be up and running again. We're very excited. In the meantime, we take the sukhor of life by hearing Sri Caitanya-caritämrta with the devotees, and Rasika Shiromani Das Brahmachari is there in Houston, in ISKCON Houston, and working very hard to finish the editing of the Caitanya-caritämrta audiobook, and then hopefully he'll be able to come here after we get everything set up, and we can do the dub-ins that need to be done to perfect it before we can publish. And our goal is to publish the official audiobook of the BBT by Gaur Purim, or thereabouts. So it's an exciting time, and all the elements that we need to do this are coming together, so that our vow, our dream to publish Srila Prabhupada's books in a way that the major works of Srila Prabhupada, in a way that's never been published before, in an official way. And we're just so happy, it's hard to describe. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur loved the Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. He said the day will come when the Westerners will learn Bengali just to be able to read Caitanya-caritämrta in the original. He was glorifying the Sri Caitanya-caritämrta a lot, and this is one of the things he said. I've been saying it every day, but it's so nectarian, hoping to increase the depth of our ecstasy. He said, in due course, Mahapralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or, if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam, but under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, for if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after it has subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhaktavinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhaktavinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. Jai. All right, Madhya-lila Puri, 4th chapter, Madhya-lila. We're starting with text 143. Madhya-lila Puri has just received the sweet rice stolen by Gopinath, Chirachora Gopinath, the stealer of the pot of chira, of sweet rice, for Madhavendra Puri. And when he realized that word would get out what happened, he just left in the middle of the night. He didn't want any praise. He was avoiding honor and praise. Text 143. Walking and walking, Madhavendra Puri finally reached Jagannath Puri, which is also known as Nilachala. There he saw Lord Jagannath and was overwhelmed with loving ecstasy. When Madhavendra Puri was overwhelmed in the ecstasy of love of Godhead, he sometimes stood up and sometimes fell to the ground. Sometimes he laughed, danced, and sang. In this way, he enjoyed transcendental bliss by seeing the Jagannath deity. 145. When Madhavendra Puri came to Jagannath Puri, people were aware of his transcendental reputation. Therefore, crowds of people came and offered him all sorts of respects in devotion. So the reputation of a great devotee, he cannot get away from it even if he wants to, even if he tries to. It's described that the honor follows the devotee just like the calf follows the mother. Even if the mother is in the herd, the calf can find her out. Text 146. Even though one may not like it, reputation is ordained by providence. Reputation, as ordained by providence, comes to him. Indeed, one's transcendental reputation is known throughout the entire world. 147. Being afraid of his reputation, pratishta, Madhavendra Puri fled from Rimuna, but the reputation brought by love of Godhead is so sublime that it goes along with the devotee as if following him. Purport. Almost all the conditioned souls within the material world are envious. Jealous people generally turn against one who automatically attains some reputation. This is natural for jealous people. Consequently, when a devotee is fit to receive worldly reputation, he is envied by many people. This is quite natural. When a person out of humility does not desire fame, people generally think him quite humble and consequently give him all kinds of fame. Actually, a Vaishnava does not hanker after fame or a great reputation. Madhavendra Puri, the king of Vaishnavas, bore his reputation, but he wanted to keep himself outside the vision of the general populace. He wanted to cover his real identity as a great devotee of the Lord. But when people saw him overwhelmed in the ecstasy of love of Godhead, they naturally gave credit to him. Actually, a first-class reputation is due Madhavendra Puri because he was a most confidential devotee of the Lord. Sometimes a sahaja presents himself as being void of desires for reputation, pratishta, in order to become famous as a humble man. Such people cannot actually attain the platform of celebrated Vaishnavas. 148. Madhavendra Puri wanted to leave Jagannath Puri because the people were honoring him as a great devotee. However, this threatened to hinder his collecting sandalwood for the Gopal deity. So he tolerated anything to do his service. 149. Sri Madhavendra Puri told all the servants of Lord Jagannath and all the great devotees there the story of the appearance of Sri Gopal. When all the devotees at Jagannath Puri heard that the Gopal deity wanted sandalwood, in great pleasure they all endeavored to collect it. Those who were acquainted with government officers met with them and begged for camphor and sandalwood, which they collected. Purport. It appears that Malayaja chandan, sandalwood, and camphor were used for the Jagannath deity. The camphor was used in his aratrik, and the sandalwood was used to smear his body. Both these items were under government control. Therefore, the devotees had to meet with the government officials. Informing them of all the details, they attained permission to take the sandalwood and camphor outside Jagannath Puri. One brahmana and one servant were given to Madhya-lila Puri just to carry the sandalwood. He was also given the necessary traveling expenses. Text 153. To get past the toll collectors along the way, Madhya-lila Puri was supplied the necessary release papers from government officers. The papers were placed in his hand. In this way, Madhya-lila Puri started for Vrindavan with the burden of sandalwood, and after some days he again reached the village of Remuna and the Gopinath temple there. 155. When Madhya-lila Puri reached the temple of Gopinath, he offered his respectful obeisances many times at the lotus feet of the Lord. In the ecstasy of love, he began to dance and sing without cessation. Text 156. When the priest of Gopinath saw Madhya-lila Puri again, he offered all respects to him, and giving him the sweet rice prasadam, made him eat. Madhya-lila Puri took rest that night in the temple, but toward the end of the night, he had another dream. Madhya-lila Puri dreamed that Gopal came before him and said, O Madhya-lila Puri, I have already received all the sandalwood and camphor. Now just grind all the sandalwood together with the camphor and then smear the pulp on the body of Gopinath daily until it is finished. There is no difference between my body and Gopinath's body. They are one and the same. Therefore, if you smear the sandalwood pulp on the body of Gopinath, you will naturally also smear it on my body. Thus the temperature of my body will be reduced. Purport. Gopal was situated in Vrindavan, which was far from Remuna. In those days, one had to pass through provinces governed by the Muslims, who sometimes hindered travelers. Considering the trouble of his devotee, Lord Gopal, the greatest well-wisher of his devotees, ordered Madhya-lila Puri to smear the sandalwood pulp on the body of Gopinath, which was non-different from the body of Gopal. In this way the Lord relieved Madhya-lila Puri from trouble and inconvenience. Text 161. You should not hesitate to act according to my order. Believing in me, just do what is needed. That's perfect devotional service. Believing in me, just do what is needed. That's the formula for pure devotional service. After giving these instructions, Gopal disappeared and Madhya-lila Puri awoke. He immediately called for all the servants of Gopinath, and they came before him. Madhya-lila Puri said, smear the body of Gopinath with this camphor and sandalwood I have brought for Gopal in Vrindavan. Do this regularly every day. If the sandalwood pulp is smeared over the body of Gopinath, then Gopal will be cooled. After all, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely independent. His order is all-powerful. 165. The servants of Gopinath became very pleased to hear that in the summer all the sandalwood pulp would be used to anoint the body of Gopinath. Madhya-lila Puri said, these two assistants will regularly grind the sandalwood, and you should also get 2 other people to help. I shall pay their salaries. So even Madhya-lila Puri, the most renounced Purusha in the world, had money to give for salaries of 2 others. Yukta Vairagya. Text 167. In this way, Gopinathji was supplied ground sandalwood pulp daily. The servants of Gopinath were very pleased with this. Text 168. In this way, the sandalwood pulp was smeared over the body of Gopinath until the whole stock was finished. Madhavendra Puri stayed there until that time. 169. At the end of summer, Madhavendra Puri returned to Jagannath Puri, where he remained with great pleasure during the whole period of Chaturmasya. Purport. The Chaturmasya period begins in the month of Ashada, June, July, from the day of Ekadashi, called Shayana Ekadashi, in the fourth night of the waxing moon. The period ends in the month of Kartik, October-November, on the Ekadashi day, known as Uttana Ekadashi, in the fourth night of the waxing moon. This 4-month period is known as Chaturmasya. Some Vaishnavas also observe it from the full moon day of Ashada until the full moon day of Kartik. That is also a period of 4 months. This period, calculated by lunar months, is called Chaturmasya, but others also observe Chaturmasya according to the solar month, from Shravana to Kartik. The whole period, either lunar or solar, takes place during the rainy season. Chaturmasya should be observed by all sections of the population. It does not matter whether one is a grihasta or a sannyasi. The observance is obligatory for all ashramas. The real purpose behind the vow taken during these 4 months is to minimize the quantity of sense gratification. This is not very difficult. In the month of Shravana, one should not eat spinach. In the month of Bhadra, one should not eat yogurt. And in the month of Ashwina, one should not drink milk. One should not eat fish or other non-vegetarian food during the month of Kartik. That's also urad dal is considered non-vegetarian. This has so much protein. A non-vegetarian diet means fish and meat. Similarly, masura dal and urad dal are also considered non-vegetarian. These 2 dals contain a great amount of protein, and food rich in protein is considered non-vegetarian. On the whole, during the 4-month period of Chaturmasya, one should practice giving up all food intended for sense enjoyment. Text 170. Thus Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu personally praised the nectarian characteristics of Madhavendra Puri, and while he related all this to the devotees, he personally relished it. Text 171. Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu asked Nityananda Prabhu to judge whether there was anyone within the world as fortunate as Madhavendra Puri. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Madhavendra Puri was so fortunate that Krishna personally appeared before him on the plea of delivering milk. 3 times the Lord gave orders to Madhavendra Puri in dreams. Being obliged because of the loving affairs of Madhavendra Puri, Lord Krishna himself appeared as the Gopal deity, and accepting his service, he liberated the whole world. On account of Madhavendra Puri, Lord Gopinath stole the pot of sweet rice. Thus he became famous as Chira Chora, the thief who stole the sweet rice. Madhavendra Puri smeared the sandalwood pulp over the body of Gopinath, and in this way he was overpowered with love of Godhead. In the provinces of India governed by the Muslims, there was much inconvenience in traveling with sandalwood and camphor. Because of this, Madhavendra Puri might have gotten into trouble. This became known to the Gopal deity. The Lord is very merciful and attached to his devotees. So when Gopinath was covered with sandalwood pulp, Madhavendra Puri's labor became successful. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu placed the standard of Madhavendra Puri's intense love before Nityananda Prabhu for judgment. All his loving activities are uncommon, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. Indeed, one is struck with wonder to hear of his activities. Purport. When the living entity feels spiritual separation from Krishna, Krishna Viraha, he has achieved the prime success of life. Shall we read that again? Oh, all right. When the living entity feels spiritual separation from Krishna, Krishna Viraha, he has achieved the prime success of life. When one becomes disinterested in material things, he is simply experiencing the other side of attraction for material things. However, feeling separation from Krishna and engaging in the service of the Lord to fulfill his mission constitute the best example of love of Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to point out this intense love of Krishna exhibited by Madhavendra Puri. All Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's devotees later followed in the footsteps of Madhavendra Puri, serving the Lord without personal considerations. Text 179. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, Sri Madhavendra Puri used to remain alone. He was completely renounced and always very silent. He was uninterested in everything material, and for fear of talking about mundane things, he always lived without a companion. 180. After receiving the transcendental orders of Gopal, this great personality traveled thousands of miles just to collect sandalwood by begging. Although Madhavendra Puri was hungry, he would not beg food to eat. This renounced person carried a load of sandalwood for the sake of Sri Gopal. Without considering his personal comforts, Madhavendra Puri carried one mound, about 82 pounds, of sandalwood and 20 tolas, about 8 ounces, of camphor, to smear over the body of Gopal. This transcendental pleasure was sufficient for him. Since there were restrictions against taking the sandalwood out of the Orissa province, the toll official confiscated the stock. But Madhavendra Puri showed him the release papers given by the government and consequently escaped difficulties. 184. Madhavendra Puri was not at all anxious during the long journey to Vrindavan through the provinces governed by the Muslims and filled with unlimited numbers of watchmen. Although Madhavendra Puri did not have a farthing with him, he was not afraid to pass by the toll officers. His only enjoyment was in carrying the load of sandalwood to Vrindavan for Gopal. This is the natural result of intense love of Godhead. The devotee does not consider personal inconveniences or impediments. In all circumstances, he wants to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. It is natural for those who have developed intense love for Krishna not to care for personal inconvenience and impediments. Such devotees are simply determined to execute the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his representative, the spiritual master. In all circumstances, even amidst the greatest dangers, they undeviatingly carry on with the greatest determination. This definitely proves the intense love of the servitor. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.8, Tate nukampam susamikshamana. Those who seriously desire to get free from the clutches of material existence, who have developed intense love for Krishna, are worthy candidates for going back home, back to Godhead. An intense lover of Krishna does not care for any number of material discomforts, scarcity, impediments, or unhappiness. It is said that when one sees apparent unhappiness or distress in a perfect Vaishnava, it is not at all unhappiness for him, rather it is transcendental bliss. In the Shikshastaka 8, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has also instructed Ashlishyava Padadatam Panastumam. The intense lover of Krishna is never deviated from his service, despite all difficulties and impediments brought before him. Text 187. Sri Gopal wanted to show how intensely Madhavendra Puri loved Krishna. Therefore he asked him to go to Nilachala to fetch sandalwood and camphor. With great trouble and after much labor, Madhavendra Puri brought the load of sandalwood to Remuna. However, he was still very pleased. He discounted all the difficulties. Text 189. To test the intense love of Madhavendra Puri, Gopal, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, ordered him to bring sandalwood from Nilachala. And when Madhavendra Puri passed this examination, the Lord became very merciful to him. Text 190. Such behavior exhibited in loving service between the devotee and the devotee's lovable object, Sri Krishna, is transcendental. It is not possible for a common man to understand. Common men do not even have the capacity. Text 191. After saying this, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited the famous verse of Madhavendra Puri. That verse is just like the moon. It has spread illumination all over the world. Continuous rubbing increases the aroma of Malaya sandalwood. Similarly, consideration of this verse increases one's understanding of its importance. As the Kaustuba money is considered the most precious of valuable stones, this verse is similarly considered the best of poems dealing with the mellows of devotional service. Actually, this verse was spoken by Srimati Radharani herself, and by her mercy only was it manifest in the words of Madhavendra Puri. Only Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has tasted the poetry of this verse. No fourth man is capable of understanding it. Purport. This indicates that only Srimati Radharani, Madhavendra Puri, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are capable of understanding the purport of this verse. 196. Madhavendra Puri recited this verse again and again at the end of his material existence. Thus, uttering this verse, he attained the ultimate goal of life. Ayi dina dayardra nata he, matura nata kadabalok yase, hridayam twadaloka kataram, dayita brahm yatikim karom yaham. Dayita brahm yatikim karom yaham. Ayi dina dayardra nata he, matura nata kadabalok yase, hridayam twadaloka kataram, dayita brahm yatikim karom yaham. O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O most beloved, what shall I do now? Purport. The uncontaminated devotees who strictly depend on the Vedanta philosophy are divided into 4 sampradayas, or transcendental parties. Out of the 4 sampradayas, the Sri Madhvacharya Sampradaya was accepted by Madhavendra Puri. Thus he took sannyas according to parampara, the disciplic succession, beginning from Madhvacharya down to the spiritual master of Madhavendra Puri, the Acharya named Lakshmipati. There was no realization of devotional service in conjugal love. Sri Madhavendra Puri introduced the conception of conjugal love for the first time in the Madhvacharya Sampradaya. And this conclusion of the Madhvacharya Sampradaya was revealed by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu when he toured southern India and met the Tattvavadis, who supposedly belonged to the Madhvacharya Sampradaya. When Sri Krishna left Vrindavan and accepted the kingdom of Mathura, Srimati Radharani, out of ecstatic feelings of separation, expressed how Krishna can be loved in separation. Thus, devotional service in separation is central to this verse. Worship in separation is considered by the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya to be the topmost level of devotional service. According to this conception, the devotee thinks of himself as very poor and neglected by the Lord. Thus he addresses the Lord as Dina Dayardra Nath, as did Madhavendra Puri. Such an ecstatic feeling is the highest form of devotional service. Because Krishna had gone to Mathura, Srimati Radharani was very much affected, and she expressed herself thus: "My dear Lord, because of your separation my mind has become overly agitated. Now tell me, what can I do? I am very poor, and you are very merciful. So kindly have compassion upon me, and let me know when I shall see you." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was always expressing the ecstatic emotions of Srimati Radharani that she exhibited when she saw Uddhava at Vrindavan. Similar feelings experienced by Madhavendra Puri are expressed in this verse. Therefore, Vaishnavas in the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya say that the ecstatic feelings experienced by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during his appearance came from Sri Madhavendra Puri through Ishvara Puri. All the devotees in the line of the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya accept these principles of devotional service. Text 198. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited this verse, he immediately fell to the ground, unconscious. He was overwhelmed. He was overwhelmed and had no control over himself. Text 199. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell to the ground in ecstatic love, Lord Nityananda quickly took him on his lap, crying, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then got up again. Exhibiting ecstatic emotions, the Lord began to run here and there, making resounding noises. Sometimes he laughed, and sometimes he cried, and sometimes he danced and sang. 201. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could not recite the whole verse. He simply said, Ai Dina, repeatedly. Thus he could not speak, and profuse tears were in his eyes. Trembling, perspiration, jubilant tears, shock, fading of the bodily luster, disappointment, moroseness, loss of memory, pride, joy, and humility were all visible in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's body. Purport. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Jadya is explained as loss of memory brought about by severe shock due to separation from the beloved. In that state of mind, one loses all concern for loss and gain, hearing and seeing, as well as all other considerations. This marks the preliminary appearance of illusion. 203. This verse uncovered the door of ecstatic love, and when it was exhibited, all the servants of Gopinath saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dance in ecstasy. Text 204. When many people crowded around Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he regained his external senses. In the meantime, the offering to the deity had been finished, and there was a resounding arati performance. When the deities were laid down to rest, the priest came out of the temple and offered all 12 pots of sweet rice to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When all the pots of sweet rice, remnants left by Gopinath, were placed before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he became very pleased. In order to feed the devotees, he accepted 5 of them. 207. The 7 remaining pots were pushed forward and delivered to the priest. When the 5 pots of sweet rice the Lord had accepted were distributed, then the 5 pots of sweet rice the Lord had accepted were distributed among the 5 devotees, and they ate the prasadam. 208. Being identical with the Gopinath deity, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already tasted and eaten the pots of sweet rice. Yet just to manifest devotional service, he again ate the pots of sweet rice as a devotee. Text 209. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed that night at the temple, engaged in congregational chanting. In the morning, after seeing the Mangalarati performance, he departed. In this way, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally tasted with his own mouth the transcendental qualities of Gopalji, Gopinath, and Sri Madhavendra Puri. Thus I have described both the transcendental glories of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's affection for his devotees and the highest limit of ecstatic love of God. One who hears this narration with faith and devotion attains the treasure of love of Godhead at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Sri Rupa Raghunatha Pariyara Ash, Caitanya-caritämrta, Kahi Krishna Das. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, Madhya-lila, 4th chapter, describing Sri Madhavendra Puri's devotional service. All glory to Sri Madhavendra Puri. All glories to Sri Govardhan. All glories to Gopalji. All glories to Sri Gopinathji. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Jagannath Puri. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. The devotional service of Madhavendra Puri ki jai. Ecstatic love of God ki jai. Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll stop there and ask any of the devotees if you're still conscious. There haven't been very many comments or reflections over the last few days because it's so ecstatic. I think everybody's lying on the floor, gurgling, rolling on the ground. Or maybe they ran out the door hearing and chanting, loudly chanting the holy name. Whatever. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. What do you got for me over there? Something?
Something from Aparna Verma.
Aparna Verma.
Yes.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Formula of pure devotional service. Believe in me and do the needful.
Yes.
Thank you so much for this gem.
Yes, that gem doesn't come from me, it comes from Prabhupada. I'm just trying to let Prabhupada speak for himself. That's my goal in life. Let Srila Prabhupada speak for himself and try to deliver it without changing it. And I can't think of any better way to do that than to read his books out loud to the devotees. Hare Krishna.
May M. Maitreyi.
Maya Maitreyi.
She says, so waiting for the audio versions. So waiting for the audio versions, Maharaj. All glories to you and your service. Jai.
So be it, so be it. By your blessings and the blessings of all the Vaishnavas, may I get the strength and the health and the longevity and the, yes, perseverance to do this. But there's so many things happening in order to set this situation up. I have confidence I'm going to do it. I don't know how, but I have confidence that it's Lord Chaitanya's desire, Lord Prabhupada's desire. I was reading a purport quite some time ago when I was recording the Caitanya-caritämrta for the audio for the first audio book, and Prabhupada was talking in the purport about how much pleasure he gets when one of his books is published. And I just stopped. I had to stop. And I realized what I'm doing right now is participating, at least, in the publishing of Prabhupada's books in a format that has not been done before. Not by the BBT, not in this style and quality. And I became ecstatic. What can I say? I became so happy. So yes, thank you very much for encouraging me, and I will do my best to satisfy all the devotees with this service. The pressure is on.
This is a comment from Sudevi Dasi.
Hare Krishna, Sudevi.
She says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. It's so wonderful to hear. I have no comment, except I am still here and love the hearing more and more.
Haribol. That is the goal of life, to get attached to hearing Srila Prabhupada's books. That's the goal. Everything will come from that. We may have so many things that we think are disqualifications or qualifications, whatever, but this is the real qualification, to become attracted and attached to hearing about Krishna, hearing about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all of their eternal associates. That is the greatest gift. We just heard about the intimate details of the pastimes of Madhya-lila Puri. So wonderful. So wonderful. Okay, next. Hare Krishna.
Rati Manjari.
Hey Rati.
She says, Hare Krishna, dear Guru Maharaj,
Hari
please
Bol.
accept my humble obeisances.
Jai Ho.
Tonight we heard in more detail about the transcendental character and devotion of Srila Madhavendra Puri. I have a few questions. Srila Madhavendra Puri is an exalted devotee engaged in pure devotional service. We heard that Srila Madhavendra Puri paid 2 devotees to prepare the sandalwood paste for Gopinath. How are we to understand this?
How are we to understand it? Wherever Madhavendra Puri went, people would give him charity because they knew that they would become purified. So he always had whatever he needed was given to him, and then he would give that to others. You're thinking a sannyasi doesn't have anything? If a sannyasi, but the point that was made over and over again, was it nothing mattered to him except for his service. So whatever it took to do his service, he would accept those things and do his service. That is real sannyas. Anashrita karma palam, karyam karma karoti yaha, sas sannyasi chiyogi cha, naniragnir nichakriya. That's the first verse of the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, in which Krishna describes what a real sannyasi is one who performs activities in devotional service without attachment for the results. Not the person who lights no fire and does no service, doesn't do anything, does no work for Krishna. So a person who serves Krishna and gives everything, even though he may have a lot. Sometimes Krishna may give a lot. Just like I have to do this service, so all of a sudden all these things are coming to me. Without me, I'm not really doing anything to get them, but they're coming. And that's a sign that Krishna wants this service done. So it's my duty to tolerate, having things that you need to do this service. And that's what Madhya-lila Puri did, wherever he went. He tried to avoid it, but he couldn't.
Rati says, I meant to say that is it not better to do the service without being paid for it?
He's paying the person to do the service, because in those days, and not even in those days, even now, sometimes people need something to live. And so the Brahmana, dana, and gives charity and receives charity. It's for the service. It's not that Madhya-lila Puri is attached, or the persons who are attached to do that service. Everybody has to eat, everybody has to put food in the mouth, and everybody needs a little money to live. Everyone. Even the beggars on the street. They have to put out their hand, they have to put the money in, they take something, they have to put money in their mouth, they have to do something. It's a sentimental concept that people who are in renounced order, they don't do anything. They can't receive anything, they can't have anything, they can't do anything. It's not like that. It's culture. It's a spiritual culture in India.
She says, shouldn't these devotees have been happy to assist such a great saint without accepting payment?
You're assuming so much. You're assuming that they ask for payment. If a great soul gives you something, it's your duty to accept it. It's a narrow-minded attitude. To think ill of those devotees who did that service because Madhya-lila Puri gave them money to do the service. That's a transcendental pastime. Completely transcendental pastime. It's part of the dream of Gopinath. It's part of the instruction of Gopinath. All those persons are engaged in the service of Gopinath and Gopal.
Because when we accept payment for our service, does that decrease the quality of our service?
This is mundane conception. Maybe some people it does. But the transcendental nature of devotional service is that it purifies everyone. Of course it's better not to take money for service. But just like now the sannyasis, they travel and preach. I've been a sannyasi for a very long time, and I've had to travel all over the world in airplanes. I have to go here and there. Of course, by Krishna's grace, I hope I don't have to do that anymore now that I'm old. I don't need to. But it's just, I'm doing my service and I'm having to accept, I have to have a credit card to buy something, a ticket, to rent a car. You can't even do things nowadays unless you have those things. You have to get your visa, you have to do this, you have to do that. It's a sentimental idea. Devotional service means we shouldn't take anything for it. We do our service, what needs to be done. We don't know the circumstances behind those devotees and what they needed and who they were. And then what does that do? You cast a negative light on the pastimes of Madhya-lila Puri. How can you do that? You should think that these are pastimes and you should appreciate and hear them without doubt, without confusion, and try to understand. As we're doing now, I'm not criticizing you for trying to understand. It's good. But I'm giving you the answers. It's up to you to take them. Hare Krishna. I was on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada. I had just joined the movement. I was married, I had a child. And I was driving a taxi cab on the order of Jayananda. And at one point I realized, as I left a Bhagavad Gita in the seat of my taxi cab, so the person would have to pick it up and ask whose it was, and I'd start to talk to him about the book. And by the end of the time I got to the airport, he took the book and gave me the tip. So then, after a while, I realized, hey, I can do this, and maybe I can maintain my griha this way. So I asked Prabhupada, could I maintain my griha by selling your books? He said, yes, you can take 25% off the top. So I was distributing Prabhupada's books. It was transcendental service. And I took a little off the top to live. Because that was my situation at the time. So we don't know what the situation of those people were, that he gave, the service to do that hard work, doing sandalwood. I don't know if you've ever done it before, but when they have Caitanya-caritämrta ceremonies and they smear the sandalwood per solid on the whole body of a large, deity, it takes a lot of work. It's hard work. It's hard and it's tedious. You have to grind and grind and grind and grind for days to get enough sandalwood pulp to do that. So you have to take a lot of things into consideration. Hare Krishna.
And the comment from Vilasini Devidasi.
Hare Krishna Vilasini.
Says, I can't wait to have that audiobook in my hands and ears. Thank you so much, Maharaj, and to those helping you make this a reality. I hope one day you come to New Vrindavan so that I can take your transcendental darshan in person, and if you allow me, cook something for you.
Vani is not different than Vapu, but I will be happy if that can happen.
And Rati Manjari, she says, thank you, Guru Maharaj. You are so kind to elaborate on my neophyte questions.
These are great questions.
I do not know who else I would dare to ask these questions.
These are great questions, Rati, not to worry.
But your transcendental vision purifies my wicked, envious mind.
You're just doing this for the benefit of others. You understand all these things. You're just doing it so that everyone will understand more deeply, that's all. Hare Krishna. What else?
Aparna Verma says, please bless us to be able to follow your footsteps.
so be it. The goal of my life is to get other people to read Prabhupada's books out loud. The more you do it, the happier you will become. The more you will understand who you are, what this world is, who Krishna is, what our duty is, what the purpose of human life is. And you can get out of this mess that the materialistic persons have made of the world. I was listening to Gopi Puranananda give a lecture the other day, and he was analyzing the Sanskrit in a verse, and he was describing how, I don't remember the words, but he was talking about how the person who is free from distress, he's not free from the causes of distress. We get disease, we get this, we get old age. Here I am, older man with disease and so many things. But it doesn't have to affect us. We don't have to allow it to affect our consciousness, to affect our happiness, to affect our, our service. That's what it means to be equipoised. It doesn't mean that you never, have a distressful situation. It means that it doesn't disturb your devotional service or the quality of your consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Rati Manjari says she has another question if nobody else has one. She must still be typing.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Rati Manjari's question, she says, we heard that Srila Madhavendra Puri lived by himself because he didn't want to risk having to talk about mundane subject matters. Yet, on the other hand, we also hear that it is the desire of great devotees to want to be in the company of other devotees. How are we to reconcile these different flavors in devotional service? Or are they simply meant to exist side by side?
Well, we're living in a time when Krishna consciousness is being spread all over the world in a way that it's never been spread before. Madhavendra Puri is living in a time when the Vedic culture, the spiritual culture, was still quite prevalent in India. So when it wasn't his service to do that. Like Lord Chaitanya had so many servants, so many devotees, and some of them were recluses, and they purified the world just by sitting in one place, like Haridas Thakur, and chanting for the benefit of everyone, and he purified the world. He instructed, Raghunath Goswami, in renunciation, and he was the emblem of renunciation. He instructed, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami to reestablish all the places of pilgrimage in Vrindavan that had been lost. That was a hard work. They had to work. They had to go everywhere. They had to read. They had to study. They had to ask questions. It was like they were the topmost private investigators, and they had to write books. He gave them a duty to write the books that would be the basis of his philosophy. Other devotees were kings. Prataparudri Maharaj was a king. You can't classify devotees as being with or without something. So Madhavendra Puri's service was his service. to bring the Madhurya Rasa into the material world. Lokanath Maharaj, decided he wasn't going to have any disciples. And it took Narottam Das 2 years, doing service behind his back until he finally realized somebody was doing that. And then it was revealed to him that he was supposed to initiate. Gorkashore Das Babaji initiated Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the greatest scholar and spreader of Krishna consciousness, him and Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the history of modern times of India. And that they took shelter of Gorkashore Das Babaji and Jagannath Das Babaji, who were complete renunciates, Bhajananandis. Bhajananandi and Goshtanandi. The Goshtanandis are, working to spread Krishna consciousness, and Bhajananandis, they stay by themselves and do nirbhajan. These are different moods, they're different ecstasies of devotees. It's not that a pure devotee becomes, rubber stamped, or not rubber stamped, but stereotype. It's not like cookie cutter. Okay, you got the right shape, the right everything. Okay, make all the cookies the same, like that. It's not like that. Each devotee is an individual soul, and each soul is different, and each soul has a different relationship with Krishna, and there are varieties. And Krishna loves variety. But for us, in our sampradaya, under Srila Prabhupada's guidance as a founder acharya, our desire is to strain our brains how to spread Krishna consciousness into the world of gross materialism. You can read in the pastimes of Mahaprabhu how all these people acted. When Madhya-lila Puri went to Govardhan, he found the deity, and then the deity told him, okay, go get all the villagers. They brought all the villagers, and then he engaged them all. He was living right there and engaging people and having Anakuta ceremonies where all the food and all the grains and all the milk from all the villages around the whole area were being cooked and offered to the Lord and distributed. So if you take one statement or take one little part of and then try to make that the thing, it's not broad-minded enough. You have to learn to see more of the details of a person's life in order to see what they really are, and see the context of the life, the cultural milieu that they come in, and what the devotional services are. Then we can rise to the transcendental platform and see the devotional service and be satisfied with that. Hare Krishna.
Rati's comment, she says, just like in the spiritual world, everyone is unique and has a personal relationship with Krishna. So nice. Thank you for your wonderful, enthusiastic explanations.
Hare Krishna.
You are giving all of us spiritual strength.
Well, it's your questions, Rati, a lot of the time. Hare Krishna.
And a question from Saloni Sachisundari.
Saloni Sachisundari, okay.
Says, what about the devotee asking money from the temple president when the temple itself doesn't have money?
I don't know. It's a hard question. I don't know the details. I can't answer that. Maybe he's in complete Maya. Maybe he's a Kali Chela. Prabhupada said, we read it just the other day. There's many, materialists in the guise of devotees. It's not that just because a person's living in a temple and has, some people come to live in a temple to get themselves situated financially. Then they leave. Prabhupada used to, tease them. You come, you do service, you get your self together, and then you leave and engage in sense gratification. That means a neophyte devotee. It's not advanced devotees don't do that. But neophyte devotees, when they come and associate with the temple, they get purified by contact of the deity, by hearing and chanting. I don't so much approve of devotees getting salaries when they're living in the temple either. But here I am, I got brought here, I'm having to get a flat, and I have to, get this studio together to do this audiobooks. What do you think I do? Just go out on the street and smile and all these things happen? No. And you could criticize me. Well, Maharaj, why do you have all this money? Why are you getting all this money? Yeah, because I have to do something for Krishna. I have to do these audiobooks. I have to try to spread the Krishna consciousness movement as much as possible with this old decrepit old man's body. We take the money and we try to engage it in Krishna service. If a person if the temple doesn't have any money and they're asking for money, then what can I say? I don't know what the situation is. I don't know what the situation with the temple. I don't know what the situation is with the devotee. Depends on the consciousness. Sometimes it may be, completely, uncalled for. Sometimes it may be needed. I don't know. Depends on the situation. Depends on the consciousness. It depends on the verve. It depends on the enthusiasm to spread Krishna consciousness among the devotees. And when you do that, then Krishna, he provides everything. If the temple doesn't have any money, maybe the preaching isn't being done properly. Prabhupada wouldn't make a hard and fast rule if a person was doing, essential service in the temple. He would allow the person to get some stipend for living. Everybody needs food, everybody needs clothing, everybody needs body necessities. Prabhupada used to say, Krishna is no poor man. We can feed and clothe as many people as come. And if we're not doing that, then we're not following Prabhupada's instructions. He said everyone that comes to the temple should be given a full plate of prasadam. Everybody. So if we follow the orders of the spiritual master, then we will be given the blessing of those opulences. If we do it for our own sense gratification, then it'll be cut off. But I can't say this particular person is this particular person is that. I'm just telling you what Prabhupada explained to us. It's the same. It's the same as we've been speaking all this evening. That different devotees have different duties and different services, and they need different things to do those kinds of services. But I don't want to get drug into the politics of a particular temple and their administration and the devotees. No way. Thank you.
There's a question from Dayal-nitai.
Dayal-nitai, Haribo, Haribo.
He says, Dear Srila Guru Maharaj, please accept my obeisance. Hare Krishna. Would you explain more how a foodstuff from plant origin is considered non-vegetarian because of its high protein content? Thank you, your servant Dayal-nitai.
That's all I know. I don't know very much about the physics of it or the chemistry of it. All I know is that, if something is very high in protein, it tends to agitate the senses. And sense gratification becomes, the senses become more agitated. The whole purpose of Chaturmasya in each one of those months is to just diminish the sense gratification. Diminish the things you do for sense gratification in order to spend more time thinking and hearing and chanting about Krishna, or being in the proper consciousness to do that in a deeper way. That's why we chant more rounds during Ekadashi. That's why we do depending on our need, depending on our ability, we may take the different. But the one thing that Prabhupada said, and it was the one instruction that Lord Chaitanya gave to his mother, who he never gave an instruction to, was don't eat grains on Ekadasi. So grains and lentils are also, in that category, because they're the ones that give us strength. That's where we get our, energy. That if we have less energy to run around and do nonsense, then we can feel more like sitting and hearing and chanting peacefully. Hare Krishna. But when we become accustomed to hearing and chanting more, like I do 64 rounds on Ekadasi, every Ekadasi. I've been doing it for many, many years. I don't know how many years, I lost track. Every Ekadasi, I chant 64 rounds. So lucky me, I don't have so many things to do that I can do that. But I put off the other things. Everything in devotional service is meant to do more devotional service. The chanting Hare Krishna, what we're doing, we're asking for devotional service. So the more we chant, the more quality we chant, we'll get more devotional service. And that devotional service may be a whole variety of things. So we shouldn't judge just on the externals. We should judge on the consciousness. We should judge on the quality of the consciousness and the quality of the service and how pleasing it is to Krishna and how pleasing it is to the Vaishnavas and how pleasing it is to those who are seeking spiritual life. That's not sense gratification. It's not fruitive to want to make a whole bunch of devotees, to want to distribute a whole bunch of books. It can be fruitive, depends on the consciousness. But Prabhupada wanted the books to go out like rain to the conditioned souls, because all he was thinking about was relieving the suffering of others. And people who are neophyte, they may come because they need some help financially, or they need because they're in distress and they get relief from their distress. Sometimes when they get that relief, they just go away again. But those who are advanced and they come in contact, they get more and more advanced by associating with the devotees and the deities, and devotional service, the holy name, and then they lose their attachment for material sense gratification. They lose their attachment for materialistic life, materialistic activities. That's the test, how detached we become from sense gratification. But one can be a king and be detached from sense gratification. If we look externally, we will not understand. Maharaj Ambarish, Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira was once asked by Krishna, why are you doing this Rajasuya sacrifice? I want to be the greatest, I want to be known as the greatest devotee in the universe. Krishna says, what? Devotees don't ask for that. He said, yes, because then when they asked me, how did you do that? I said, I surrendered completely to him, to you, and that people will be more apt to do it. That's my service. And Krishna laughed and he said, okay. Hare Krishna.
Nitai says, thank you, Srila Guru Maharaj.
Okay, I'm going to stop now. It's 8:30 and I have things to do. So thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for lovely questions tonight. We haven't had very many reflections and questions over the last few nights, and I was beginning to feel separation. I don't know what happened. I thought you all abandoned me. But now I feel completely enlivened, which is the proof of the pudding, that when I get to associate with devotees, then I become enlivened. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Go Premanandi. See you tomorrow night, same time, same place, same station. same subject matter. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow.